afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see a few familiar faces again, and also some faces I haven't seen here before. So, for those of you who don't know me, but I think I know everybody in the room. Time to get a new tan. But I'm Ali Boswick from the Nelson Tasman Chamber of Commerce, and this week I've been working with the team here to do some of the more presentations focused more on the economy and the economic drivers of what drives a CBD. And so it's my great pleasure today to be able to introduce Jonny Hendriksen from ShuttleRock. About 23 years ago, I had the pleasure of attending a conference in New Zealand called the Riding the Knowledge Wave, or Catching the Knowledge Wave, something like that. It was a big initiative by the Helen Clark government. And I listened to Dr. Richard Florida, who wrote The Rise of the Creative Class, and the importance of a creative economy to sit within an economy to drive everything else. And it's really wonderful today because I think that's essentially what you're going to be talking about in one end, and really bringing that to life. So that was quite an academic kind of approach to it, but it stuck with me to the point that when I was actually on Nelson City Council, I bought a copy of that book for every councillor. And they didn't read it, clearly, but they should have read it. So maybe I'll have to repeat that whole thing and buy it for this current council. But it's really wonderful that you're going to talk today about that. I'm going to hand over to you without any further ado.
Oh, thank you very much. Jonny Hendriksen, the CEO and founder of a company called ShuttleRock, which I would be surprised if too many people know about, because pretty much 100% of our revenue comes from outside New Zealand. So we're sort of probably what you'd class as a new economy company. It's actually my daughter's 19, and they're doing a summer job for us, and we've got an office in New York, and I've just sent them off to New York. So sort of going from Nelson College straight into New York to work with us for 3 weeks. I think it's blowing their mind a little bit. But the job they're doing, we're doing quite a bit with TikTok globally at the moment, and the job that they're doing is sourcing creators to be able to build this new type of content, which is called UGC, user-generated content, which we put into ads to basically build ads for the biggest companies on the planet, including sort of Coca-Cola and Unilever and all the big guys. The message there is really that I guess the job that my daughters are just doing for the summer is a job that didn't exist 6 weeks ago. And so when we hear about education in general, about the future of whether it be the city or education, it is actually quite important to sort of realise that the only one constant that is there is change, and knowing that really trying to navigate or trying to tell our children what the future is going to look like, when I'm actually probably building roles within ShuttleRock that didn't exist 6 weeks ago. In fact, I probably created a new role today for one of my new leaders, which is is a role that probably didn't exist yesterday. So the reality is like, how can we become more and encourage our children, our cities to become more entrepreneurial? ShuttleRock really started in a friend's house in Mapua. Really, I mean, it started, if you look on the website, it started in 123 High Street in Rangiora. We were still sort of mucking around a bit then with doing various other things, but when we started with doing what we're doing now, from a friend's house in Mapua, and there was about 3-4 of us. Now globally we're about 350 head offices here in Bridge Street. We've got about 45 here at head office. It's been a really fun ride, and it's really turning into a really exciting company in the sense that everyone in the company, well, most of them are a lot younger than I am. I think I'm 54 this year, so most of my headcount are sort of 20s, 30s. It's bringing in the right type, a younger generation into the city, which is really, I think, good for Nelson and good for any city, to sort of balance out things. But I wanted to sort of talk to you about what I think is some opportunities, going forward. And as Ali was saying, I think it is the creator economy. It is all around creative, and how we encourage, the younger generation too, to be super creative and so forth. And that sort of can be tied up with the word entrepreneurial. So really, Nelson has a really unique opportunity, I think, to be the most entrepreneurial town or city in New Zealand. And I think it's because really my team, all of the innovation for ShuttleRock globally happens here at 47 Bridge Street, which is amazing. I remember having a meeting with the chief revenue officer of Facebook years ago, and I walk in to Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg is standing there, and we're sitting down. I remember sitting down with the chief revenue officer. He says, "How on earth do you guys come up with these crazy ideas?" And I said, "Well, my head of creative goes kiteboarding at lunchtime." and he walks into the advertisement track on the weekends, and believe me, when he hits the ground running on Monday morning, he's as fresh as he's crisp and ready to go. And I think there is the burdens of a city, and I was been asked to do a TED talk a number of times, haven't got around to it, but to build really powerful for entrepreneurs survive and thrive exceptionally well in areas like Nelson, really, really well. I've got a few in my team globally that are very entrepreneurial, that usually really entrepreneurial types don't get employed by companies, they go and set up their own companies. I've got 3 or 4 within ShuttleRock globally that have actually given up their own company to come and work for us, which is always a little bit humbling, but they've done that. One of them, he lives in Bogota in Colombia, which is in Central America, a crazy place. I mean, in some ways, and then he spends, and I've got another one in Costa Rica, and another one in Montenegro in Eastern Europe. And all of those sort of have a common theme with Nelson, in a sense that there's a sort of sense of freedom, there's a sort of sense of creativity, there's a sort of sense of like, they allow the creative brain, they allow entrepreneurial brains. I'm a very well-known ADHD myself, if you want to put a brand on it. But they'll be able to thrive. And really talking about that day when I was talking to 2 senior executives at Facebook was really quite a big moment, in that we were running circles around them because of the creativity that happens here. We had a meeting last week in Times Square at the head office of TikTok, presenting our new AI innovation, generative AI, and all of the wonderful stuff that's happening in that creative space, all developed here in Nelson, and they were just absolutely blown away. And so there's some products, and I hate name dropping, but it just gives you a bit of an idea. Yesterday I was on a call with the head of Americas for Snapchat, and we were presenting our AI opportunity there as well with them. Very, very exciting. So they can't keep up, or the world can't really keep up with what we have here. So what Nelson has is actually so much more than what Nelson actually realizes that it actually really has, is probably the message that I want to send. And so what I want to be able to do to hopefully open some gateways, like my own daughters have gone from Nelson girls, they're doing a part-time job in New York, it's blowing their minds away. And that's the sort of stuff which is actually really exciting, which I'd like to be able to sort of try and give back a little bit more to the youth of the area as well, to sort of open their eyes to the opportunities that we'll present, but also to understand you don't actually have to go to Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch to go and have a career. Why not start your business here? Why not? Because trying to attract talent, that's one thing we haven't. A lot of people ask us, do you have trouble getting talent here? Well, hell no. I mean, we don't pay sunshine wages. We basically we have no problem in attracting people here, because who wouldn't want to come and live in Nelson? So, my chief financial officer, he's from Barcelona, married a Kiwi girl in Auckland, and he's down here, a few weeks, a good couple of weeks of the month and so forth. And a lot of people have relocated from Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch to come and live here in Nelson. So look, I'm excited about the future, and I think that we as a city, the opportunity for us to be a real incubation hub for entrepreneurs, for new ideas. And I think the key thing there is to sort of really encourage youth, or anyone really, of any young at any age, to actually start new types of business. I think retail is, as we know, is really struggling, and I do think that the landscape of what an inner city precinct will look like in 10 years' time will look quite different. And what Richard's doing now with the AI sandbox and so forth, you may have heard. I love the idea. We're actually looking to, we're sponsoring, being the early sponsor in it to get it off the ground. But what I do love about it is actually they're using a storefront to actually do it, so it's actually front and center. And I think that the storefronts of towns, cities around New Zealand are going to change face over the years. They'll go from being a Briscoe's to being something completely new and different and innovative. that, you know, our young people and more people with brand new ideas. Because let's be honest, you know, I mean, I'm invested in a very innovative pet food company, for example, and we're looking at opening up brand new pet cafe type ideas around New Zealand as well. And that's sort of something you would never really think of, but because rents are quite low, and, you know, towns and cities, Nelson's looking to have new innovative ideas, then, you know, creating sort of a pet cafe for pets, not for humans, you know, and sort of like creating just a new lens on the way that we do business is actually some really great opportunities. So I think innovation, entrepreneurship doesn't necessarily mean you're having to work with the world. I mean, we're probably quite a unique business, but I do want, I mean, I'll be, you know, speaking around the country a bit myself and encouraging entrepreneurs to set up shop here in Nelson myself, because I think, you know, it's an easy place to, you know, get talent, and the most important thing is the people who work for me are so happy. You know, they're able to buy their first home. The number of you know, younger generation that come in, they're able to buy their home. They're able to come and cycle into town. They're able to come and, you know, live here and be very, very innovative. So that's really, I'm super excited about that. The next part I just want to talk about is something which I'm very passionate about, is the arts. And I think that every town, city that is really vibrant has a really strong art scene, and I really think that that's something that I think the arts, being from, you know, music to, I mean, right across the board, and that's something that I think, you know, Anne, you know, I really commend everything that you're doing in the city to really make it more vibrant, because, you know, I spend about 3 months a year in New York at the moment, and, you know, there's one thing that makes New York really special is probably its arts and its deep culture and the sort of the craziness of it. Obviously, Nelson's never going to become a New York, but there are a lot of learnings from some of the bigger, more vibrant cities with a lot of culture and so forth that actually make it very cool to be in, and that's where, and they all feed each other as well, because entrepreneurs love that environment as well. I think it's that freedom to be, enable people to be themselves, and I think that's what probably the most special thing about New York is that very, everyone can be themselves of who they are, and I think Nelson, that's probably the one thing is we should really cherish and make sure that everyone who lives here and does things is it can be brave and being themselves, whether that being in an entrepreneurial environment or an art environment, and that's sort of something which is, I think, the future. And I think art is, you know, encourages imagination. I think that's something which is really key, and builds connection and connectivity in the community as well. So we have decided as a company we'll only support really the arts. So where there's no real point in us having our logo on a netball team or a football team, that there's plenty of builders and other types of companies that can do that, and that's great. We don't really need local recognition, that's right. But one thing we do is support, you know, the Light Festival, and it's really great because my design teams, we've got about 200 full-time designers within the company, so they're able to get really involved in the arts art festivals, like in the Light Festival as well. So no, look, I'm really excited about the future of Nelson, and what role or little role that, you know, we me personally, or us as a company, you know, can play. But yeah, and it's like, I think, you know, like my son, who's actually in Wellington at school, he goes to the Aotearoa DJ Academy in Wellington, and that's sort of another really good example of sort of, you know, the arts. It sort of really makes, you know, that's what's sort of part of it, which has made sort of Wellington, gives it that little bit of an edge. And I think there's, I'll be encouraging the Aotearoa DJ Academy to set up a store here on as well, and that we've got the Nelson DJ Academy would be very cool to do as well, so that we're getting young people more and more involved in that sort of thing as well. So really, you know, Nelson has an amazing history, amazing amount of talent. I think I was on an interview recently with Matt Lowry, and I think the initiative that he's doing is sort of trying to bring out all sorts of different people that are in the community is actually really important as well, and really showcasing success. Sometimes Kiwis are not too good at that, but I think that is something that we need to do better, a lot better, is really showcasing success, be it small in varying degrees. So, and really encouraging, you know, our young people to really, you know, step up and have a go at, you know, at that, give that entrepreneurial spirit. So really, the arts and entrepreneurial, that's sort of my message. And I'm probably about a quarter of an hour up, so that's about it. So
Perfect.
there you go. Sorry, there wasn't any flash presentation, but
That's
that's
perfect, thank you. I'm going to lead the clapping. Hopefully there's enough people there to ask questions, because the whole point about this as well is to have a discussion, so
Right.
yeah, we'll just have some.
Right.
Jonny, just wondering, with the people that are coming in from outside, is there anything that is discussed in your employees about what they really miss when they come to Nelson from elsewhere? Is there anything they're going, it'd be really cool if Nelson had this, or?
I mean, it's just, we're quite lucky that, you know, Shuttlerock we have enough of a sort of a critical mass, because there's about 45 of us, so that if they are a slightly younger 20-year-old, you know, they can socialise a little bit, because a lot of, obviously, you know, a lot of that age group tend to disperse, but I will ask them a little bit more of that, actually. Yeah, but I think, you know, things to do, I think, you know, and entertainment's probably a key one, so I think more and more sort of, you know, a lot of them actually play music, but I think a lot of more, you know, entertainment, and so Richard, you speak for that as well, but yeah, so I think probably entertainment, outside work, entertainment would be probably quite high on the.
Yeah, it was interesting, there was an interview on Radio New Zealand today about studies that have been done about the importance of getting into nature and the measurable impact it has on increasing creativity, which is really interesting.
Oh,
totally goes to what you said.
I mean, my chief creative officer globally, he's, you know, he is the most amazingly creative person, and religiously every weekend he's on some trail out in nature, and or you know, out on the water or doing something. But you just see that come Monday morning, his brain is just ready to go. So it's just
evidential science to back that up.
yeah, no, that's really really interesting. Yeah. And I think you know, it is when we're advertising for people to come to Nelson, it's never a problem. So I think yeah, I don't know why more companies, say in Auckland and so forth, don't come here, but I think we'll be certainly making a fair bit of noise about it, because I do think that a few more creative industry companies within the central city would definitely help the central city, I think.
I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but I've been to a lot of these, and it's really interesting listening to you talk. And I feel like there's a obvious question that we don't know what it is at the moment, and I think we're probably too entrenched in our way of thinking or the way we've done things before. And I'm wondering if your team dealing with disruption and changing, like rapidly changing scenarios, wouldn't be a great incubator for actually presenting a case study and going, right, pretend this client run through this as you would a system internally, and help us understand what the actual question is that we're trying to ask ourselves, because I don't know if we know at the moment. I don't know, having sat through a lot of them, and I think a team that's used to dealing with opportunity and looking at case studies, I guess, and understanding how they could be progressed wouldn't be a really good way to try and pull some layers back on it. I don't know, so it's not really a question, but it's maybe an opportunity that we could work a way of, you know, you said there's 40 fresh minds there, that they've got a different way of thinking. It'd be a fantastic opportunity to go, well, here's the problem, we just don't know the questions to ask ourselves to kind of solve it at the moment, maybe.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we are working with a global market now, so the nice thing about being in, it's sort of 10 years ago, I don't think you'd be able to do it, but all of our global communication tools with Slack and video conference, everything's video conferencing and so forth. So I think that ability to be able to, you know, to do all of those things, coupled with the quietness and the ability to be creative here, it's just a magic combination. Being able to sort of innovate here, pop down to Red Cafe, have a coffee, come back, go for a walk up the Mai Tai, come back to there, on video conferencing with New York, London, Paris, and so forth. It's those two things together, that sort of almost juxtaposition, are certainly companies that understand that, or brands that understand that. It's incredibly valuable. And I do think some of these storefront, you know, ideas is just magnificent as well, because you can really test quickly and fail quickly. I mean, I think the thing is for us is that we'll release a new product or a service, we'll give it like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and sort of see what traction it gets, and if it doesn't work, we'll pack it up and do something else. Generally, we'll probably have a 30% hit rate on those, and the same needs to apply for a city as well. It's just like, give it a, create some canvases for people to give things a crack. I think there's an element in New Zealand still where if you try to do something, you pour your heart and soul into it, and it's like, God, if this doesn't succeed, it's a failure or whatever. But it's just that understanding, you've got 9 weeks, 12 weeks to give it a crack and have a go at new concepts, fast learning, and just take the pressure off a little bit. I think there's sort of a lot of pressure, and I think the art world is a little bit, in some ways too, is that you have to take risks to be a good artist, I believe, and it's like, I think in being an entrepreneur you have to take risks, but if you can sort of take a little bit of the pressure away from those risks and just sort of take them a little bit, soften them a little bit, I think then that sort of enables everyone in the city or everyone around to go, oh yeah, I know, I can give that a go, or yeah, and so I just think it allow more people to put their hand up and have a crack, because I think everyone has lots of ideas on what we could do. Then it's just sort of try and pick a few of them and just have a crack at some of them, and some will work and some won't. I think
that's super interesting. I feel like you've kind of, without trying to bother you up too much, like as a mind shift from where our leadership is and where the council works and the way we work very steadily over a 10-year plan, a 3-year plan. But just that little summary you've gone around, well, it's great to fail quick. This is how the commercial world works. You pick an idea, you run with it, you analyse it at the end. If it worked, great. If it hasn't, great. We've learned something. It's radically different to the way we approach our city centre, which is very annually planned and steady as she goes, with a fear of trying new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like, how the advertising we build for TikTok and Facebook and Snap and so forth. The traditional advertising model is you build 4 TV commercials for the year. You spend millions of dollars into those 4, and they'd have to be perfect. Now they'll take those 4 advertising, and then they'll, Nestle in Australia that we work with, they'll do 4,000 ads a quarter, 4,000 video ads a quarter. And what they'll do is they'll just test all of them because they just don't know. And then, so the same applies for sort of everything really. It's just taking a bit of the stress off. It should be fun.
I feel like I'm hogging your time, but that's a big change from an organisational budgeting point of view. If I'm the CEO of Nestle, I'm like, no, this is the way we do it. We do 4 campaigns a year, and you're saying no, actually you need to do 4,000. How's that cultural shift in those big organisations been?
Well, Nestle is a good example. So Nestle's revenue has zero increase in the last 10 years. So every 4 years, Nestle's marketing director is fired, and every 7 years the CEO is fired. Zero increase. So if you're inflation based, basically the last 10 years Nestle's revenues continued to drop. My hypothesis with why they are dropping, companies like Chia Sisters everyone's eating, and all these new brands that are coming in are all eating into their products. So if someone who wants to set up a chocolate shop or they say, oh, I'll go and buy the chocolate here, I won't buy Nestle. And so there's this more proliferation of brands and entrepreneurship that's going on around the world, that everyone's having a go at starting up a new juice brand or a chocolate brand. That's got negative effects on Nestle, that really all they're trying to do is just hopefully maintain revenue. So it's the complete opposite environment. It's not innovative. There's really very little to learn from a Nestle environment. There's very little to learn, I would think. But the fast environment of sort of testing and learning and making fast creative decisions is a lot more learning. And I think councils, organisations, I mean, this is we're going through a big change, and everyone just will put there'll be, because of AI and all sorts of things are there. But I do think it is more of as much of a mindset, and sort of taking away some of the stresses of having to plan out. I mean, it's quite funny when I look at a business. Some businesses, they'll go and spend $30,000 on a website and all these things are there. Well, why not spend $3,000 on a website and then learn, and you know what I mean? So it's just a little bit of a change in how business and how ideas are formulated. Sorry, getting a bit technical there.
Nobody else got? I've got a couple actually. If people don't mind. Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure if this likely to make much sense as a question, but from your perspective, do you see the kind of things that you are working with diverging into a series of different things and fracturing, or do you see convergence over time?
In the business that we're doing? It's a difficult question, really. There's certainly a lot more fragmentation, I would say, going on. I mean, I think you're starting to see a lot more, specialist. Is that what you're meaning?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to your point about saying a little while in the future you can imagine that Nelson will be quite different. And I'm kind of wondering, as best you can paint it, what's in your head in terms of how you see the pattern of the future?
I think Nelson's quite, my personal opinion is that we don't have a massive mall in Little Nelson. Not that I'm, massively against malls necessarily, but I think there's a unique opportunity for that the storefronts that we're seeing now. Retail is tough, so I think the changing tides are saying, well, I'll purchase my clothing online, or I'll do more things there. So what are some more in-person businesses that are actually, and so some, I think some businesses will struggle, that they'll be replaced potentially with, all businesses will change more into businesses which are actually a lot more personal, which brings more community. So I actually think on one side you sort of say, well, the internet is taking away retail. Well, what's the next step from retail? Is actually people are really wanting to have more in-person service, so it's, having a really strong service industry here is really important as well. So what that's going to happen, I don't know, but I think this each storefront could be, I think will be quite different in 10 years, I believe. And that's the job of the current store, potentially the current store owner, to sort of start changing the way that they do business. There's can you walk into a menswear store and have a coffee and do other things? And I don't know, but it's like, is it maybe if everyone's buying their things online, what is it that's going to make them come to their store, and how is that going to change? And they've got dogs now, and everywhere in New York you go, everyone has a dog, and the dog comes in the supermarket, the dog comes there. Still probably not quite there yet in Nelson, but those stores that allow dogs are probably going to be the first stores that are actually going to get probably more foot traffic, because they're sort of dog friendly. And so if I've got a dog and I want to buy a shirt, I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to serve the dog. Why don't I give the dog some food while I'm there and while I'm buying a shirt? So I think it's just this evolution of embracing the change, as opposed to saying, well, because AI, because of online and so forth, making sort of, I won't say excuses, but we know that that's happening regardless. So what are we as humans, or we as storefront owners or whatever, what are we doing to combat that? And we can't change, there's certain parts of this that we can't change, but what can we change is probably what
I suspect the core of my question probably reduces to embracing the change as opposed to embracing the changes. Because
that's actually a really quite a good point, because I think to sort of embrace AI, as we've got to learn about AI and so forth, understanding AI is important. It's quite a difficult thing to embrace. Someone says embrace AI, it's sort of like, you actually need some tangible things of like, how can I use AI to help my business? It's just a toolbox. I mean, it's basically a toolbox of a new modern toolbox. But I do think that we need to bring people into the inner city, and that's going to come from more of a service environment. If I can buy my shirt online, and I live out towards Motueka, if I can buy my shirt online, I'll buy my shirt online, but I'd like to be able to have a reason to be able to come in, have lunch, go into the store, take the dog, bring, or whatever it might be. And that's, I think, so there's little incremental changes that I think the town can start making that don't necessarily mean having to sort of build massive structures because to change. I mean, obviously they're really important as well. I'm really behind the library and all those sorts of things that are great.
I did have a final question if people don't mind. Nobody else has got one. I was just interested in terms of having your head office here. Do you ever have to sort of explain that away to people that you're working with in North America particularly, or did you have to sort of justify being here, or is it something you add to your brand in terms of the fact that ShuttleRock actually is this different organisation that can actually be here in a small town in a small country at the bottom of the world and
Yeah.
still do all of it?
I think COVID has helped that. I think you know the fact that you know we're able to compete now with American brands, because I mean during COVID it was quite amazing because our biggest competitor is in New York, but he couldn't go and visit the customers either.
Yeah.
So we're on a really an even playing field, which is quite a weird. It was quite a weird moment where it's just like, wow, I'm sitting here in Nelson and I'm talking to a customer and my biggest competitor in New York can't go and visit them either. So it's like, right, this is quite quite a next stroke. But I do say that they're probably, brand New Zealand in the US is very, very, it's got a very high brand. So they're almost envious. Like, and sort of, they get a bit surprised how innovative we are. So I think the brand New Zealand is they know it through Lord of the Rings. They know that New Zealand can punch above its weight in certain areas. But then if you say New Zealand, sometimes they can think you're upstate New York. Yeah. They don't know where it is. From New Zealand, upstate New York. For the sake of this conversation, yes, we're upstate New York.
Wherever you need us to be.
Wherever you need us to be.
So, and the other question I had was just related to the time zone. The fact that we're in the future and a sort of a day ahead of North American clients, is that beneficial? Do you use that as well to your advantage?
Not so much time ahead, although it's quite funny because we've got an office in Los Angeles and that's only 3 hours difference at the moment, which is amazing.
But a day
well, it's
behind.
it's 21 hours
a day,
different,
so
a day behind, but 3 hours different. So you've only got you've actually got a big window to work with. Where we really struggle is in Europe, because that's really quite difficult. But no, definitely brand New Zealand and all the tools, video conferencing, we use Slack. I mean, and I think we communicate better than a lot of American companies within American market. Because really, if you're an American company and you're on the East Coast and the West Coast and so forth, emotionally for them it's about you might as well be in New Zealand. So it's like there's still a time zone of what 3 hours or whatever anyway.
And a cultural difference.
I just know for me anything Eastern time, lunchtime Eastern, which is sort of 6 a.m. for us now. Is I can get an afternoon chatting and so forth. But
No, that's been really interesting. I'll pull it to a close down because we're 5 minutes overdue, but thank you so much. And thanks again, Jonny. It was really good.